I'm really excited to introduce Angela Zepeda. She is the CMO of Hyundai Motor America. And Hyundai has been so fantastic during the pandemic. They have a special place in my heart because they were quick to bring supplies to Detroit when Detroit was hit hard. They brought in COVID tests when we didn't have very many, and they worked with our mayor and city to do that. And all the stuff that Hyundai has done during the whole pandemic has just been right on and very, very responsive, very quick. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that from Angela. So without further ado, I will let Angela go.
Well, thank you so much. Good morning to everyone. I'm going to take a minute here to share my screen and let me get started here. I have a presentation to share with you today, and I am very excited to be here. And I do want to thank Tanya and Lisa and Jeff and Media Post for inviting me to be with all of you here today. And secondarily, and probably most importantly, I hope everyone is staying healthy and safe during this really unprecedented time, which we're going to talk about today. You know, these have been some pretty interesting days, right? But as all of us now have this global shared experience of living through a pandemic, with changing how we live and how we work, it's been an equally interesting time as a marketer. And for me personally, interesting as a new CMO at one of the country's largest auto manufacturers at Hyundai. You know, who would have thought just 5 months into being named CMO, I would be faced with something like a pandemic. And I certainly didn't see that coming. If you had asked me at the holiday, what would 2020 be? So if I was to have any advice for any of you today, that when life throws you a pandemic, don't panic. And while, you know, the silver linings still seem very far off, I think that the creativity, the resiliency, and tenacity to just work through the unknown, you know, gives me hope that we will all get through this okay at some point. But before we talk about even the pandemic and what we did or actually are still doing to get through it, I wanted to go back for a minute to where things were in January, when it was a little brighter, and we definitely thought we would have a much different year than what we've ended up getting at this point. At Hyundai, we had a lot of wind at our back coming into 2020. And with an incredible lineup of new CUVs and SUVs, we were ending 2019 with the launch of our beautiful new Palisade vehicle. And we had a great 2019 all around, with just really good sales year over year. And we also had a great January and February, which included launching another new exciting vehicle for us, which was the all new 2020 Sonata on the Super Bowl. And hopefully most of you saw the Super Bowl and our spot starring John Krasinski, Chris Evans, Rachel Dratch, and Big Papi. But just in case you missed it, I want to take a minute to take you back in time and play it all again for you again this morning.
Look at these two troublemakers.
Wicked car, is that new?
Yeah, it's a Sonata. Let me pack it.
Oh, you're not fitting your car in there.
Chris, stop being a smarty pants, all right? Look who's got Smart Pack.
Smart pack?
Just hit the clicker, car packs itself. And I can pack it anywhere.
How about Dorchester?
Packed it. Foxborough. Packed it.
The Harbor?
Are you kidding me? I packed it and then unpacked it.
You unparked it?
Kid.
This is a ghost car.
A better way to park, only available on the all-new Sonata with remote smart parking assist.
So hopefully all of you saw that, and it brings a big smile to my face to see it again this morning. And I hope you guys like it too. And we were really excited about this spot, not only because it was launching the new Sonata for us, which hadn't been refreshened in many, many years, but you know, this is the time and place where the best advertisers come and show your best work. And we were really proud that Smart Pack was the highest scoring non-luxury auto ad of the Super Bowl, of just not that Super Bowl, but of all time. And what this did for us, it was just great news. It drove high interest in Hyundai and our new Sonata, and it was driving consumers to check out the vehicle online and in our dealerships. And we were really excited about what 2020 could end up being for us. And to keep that momentum going on this new vehicle launch, We had a fully integrated 360-degree campaign, including a few companion spots, which hopefully you saw those too, that continued showing and telling consumers about the fantastic technology on the Sonata, with the things like the remote smart parking assist and many other features, or what we ended up calling, because remote smart parking assist is very difficult to say, smart park. So it was great, and we were really excited about what the future was. And one of the great things that we saw at the beginning of the year was that not only were we driving high interest in the vehicle, we were attracting younger and wealthier buyers to the brand, which was really positive news for us. And with all of that great momentum at our back, as all of you know, by mid-March, our momentum was arrested as America began to shut down in response to COVID-19. And like everyone, we didn't quite know what would be the overall effect of COVID, but we had been watching things very carefully for several weeks as our parent country, South Korea, was being affected in February with day-to-day life. And we knew at some point we would have issues to address in the US. We just didn't know when or by how much. One thing in the auto industry is that we are never short on data. And we looked to industry experts to help us map out a plan that would be appropriate to what the overall impact would be in the US. And according to experts like J.D. Power, early predictions were that the auto market would bottom out in April and begin recovery in June as we moved into summer. And J.D. Power made some pessimistic to optimistic forecasts that you can see here in the dotted lines on this chart. But we weren't sure if we would see a V recovery or a U recovery, but we did know we had to make some immediate changes to address the market. But without a playbook, we had to figure it out with the information we had, just like everyone else. And where we started as a team was looking for a little inspiration from, I don't know if all of you have heard this, but there was a great quote that John F. Kennedy made when he had a speech in 1959 to the United Negro Fund, where he stated, "A crisis can be defined in two ways, danger or opportunity." So when written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger and the other represents opportunity. And you know, we really love this sentiment, especially as we felt it aligned well with the purpose that our founder and first chairman, Mr. Chung, had set for Hyundai, which was, if someone asked me what is the motivating force for Hyundai, I would have a ready answer: a desire for better. You know, a lot of people don't know the history of Hyundai or how this incredible company became to be, but it definitely has a spirit of tenacity and never give up. And there have been many things that Hyundai has done in the past that really addressed a crisis. And one of my favorite examples, if you're not aware of this, this was called the 1984 Seosan Land Reclamation Project. And what this was, it was a huge project in South Korea to close off a peninsula so they could reclaim that land for agriculture. And they'd never been able to do it because the ocean currents were too strong. Every time they tried to put earth into the ocean to make this area fully available for agriculture, it would just wash back out to sea. But with Hyundai engineering and tenacity, we took our Hyundai cargo ships, and that's what this picture is, where we anchored them in the ocean long enough to have then this land or this earth be moved so we could close off this peninsula and have this reclamation project be made. And it's a crazy project. I can't even believe it was done and accomplished as it was, but that's truly the spirit of Hyundai. And so we felt like we needed to tap into that to do something quickly and immediately as we moved into the pandemic. So what we did in those early days is we said, look, let's not overcomplicate this. Let's take this down into 3 basic steps, a little bit like what J.D. Power had told us. So the first was, let's just get some short-term business boosters. There was still enough business happening, but we also wanted to give assurance to our owners and customers that as a global company, we would have their back, that if they took a financial step out with us, that they wouldn't be left on the hook. So we'll talk about that in a minute. We also wanted to respond to the community at large. What could we do as a global company that would really demonstrate what we like to call acts of the brand that really shows that we are doing the right thing for people. And so that was the second part of this. And then thirdly, as we thought we would be getting out of COVID by summer, what would we do to re-energize the business, to capture that pent-up demand, and to keep going to help get to our business goals as much as we could, since we knew we were going to have this slow down through the springtime. So first, let's talk about our short-term business boosters. One of the first things we addressed, though, before we put anything new in the market, was that we took down all of that work or creative that we had on air, which was our Sonata launch, which of course we had to abandon, and we had some spring sales event happening. In addition, we, like many advertisers, we shifted or canceled our media. Some of that was due to cancellations like live sports or in cinema, but some of it also had to do the fact with markets were completely shutting down, our dealerships couldn't sell cars, and they didn't want to also put advertising dollars in the market. So that really impacted how much we would be investing in that time. In fact, just to give you an idea of how impactful it was, we were 36% down in our impressions from April versus March. And that continued to slide through May and into June, but it was appropriate for where we were as a company and a business. But the biggest thing we wanted to do was remain on air and never go dark. We felt like there was plenty of information we could share and do with our customers and new customers, and we wanted to keep that presence going. So the first thing we did was we wanted to do something as a company to ensure our owners and new customers would be covered if they became affected financially by COVID, by deferring payments, by relaunching what we call our Hyundai Assurance Program, which we launched this on March 17th. Some of you may be familiar with the name of this. We launched a similar program in 2008 during the great financial crisis. This one was a little bit retooled, but it was a program that was offered to owners and then new customers that should they have a financial issue due to COVID-19, they would be able to defer their payments. We wanted to get this message out quickly. We weren't able to do any production, so we had to take existing footage. These screenshots show you the simplicity of this spot and what we did to get the message out. But we were able to turn this around very quickly, and by March 20th, this message was out in the marketplace. You know, was this the right thing to do? Well, you never know. But thankfully, we've got a lot of signals out there that help tell us. One of them was we had enormous press on Hyundai Assurance, very positively received by our owners, our new customers, our dealers, and the press. We also saw incredible social positive sentiment. So we felt like that was a good first step out and a good thing for us to do. And we were really excited about that. Secondly, one of the most important things we did besides Hyundai Assurance was we felt like we needed to do something bigger. I think many of you will remember during those early days that many of the OEMs were responding with ventilators and personal protection equipment. There was a lot of news on that. And we felt there was a missing need, though, with testing. We didn't feel like anyone was addressing that, which in the early days of COVID, the US was really behind in getting testing to people. And being part of a South Korean company, one of the things that South Korea did very well was getting testing out quickly and to a large number of people. So we thought, why don't we bring testing to our local community? Well, that was a really great idea, but truthfully, you know, what did we know about bringing tests to the community? The truth is nothing. We're not medical professionals. We don't know how to administer those tests. But we did have great contacts with companies like Seejin. I don't know if you're familiar with that name, but they are a South Korean testing company. And instead of us doing the testing, we decided to go through our CSR, Hyundai Hope on Wheels, which again, if you're not aware of what that does, is that for every Hyundai that's sold in the United States, a portion of that vehicle sale goes to pediatric cancer research. So through Hope on Wheels, which is in partnership with our dealers, we've been able to donate $4.3 million to support testing centers in now what is 23 hospitals across the country. And as of just, I think, a week ago, we've been able to help administer over 600,000 tests in those testing centers. And again, because we couldn't do any production, but we wanted to make sure we got this message out, like our Hyundai Assurance spot, we quickly pulled together the following spot, which I would like to play for you.
You do everything to keep your family safe. Buckle up. Look both ways. Call me when you get there. Shoulder pads, shin guards, curfews, and safety locks. In that same spirit, Hyundai Hope on Wheels is taking new steps to help families in need, with a commitment to support drive-through testing locations for COVID-19 in cities across the country, so families can get tested safely. Because making things better for families is our first priority.
I hope all of you saw that spot. It was on air for a little while through the spring, and we were really proud with the nice sentiment that came through, even though we were using existing footage. You know, like Hyundai Assurance, our support for the testing centers proved to be almost even bigger, as we had very positive social sentiment. And, you know, you can see here from this chart, a lot of OEMs were doing a lot of good work. We were not alone in that company, but there was something to, I think, how we addressed the market that got us a lot of positive response. And of course, we were really happy about that and happy to help as we could. So it was really a feel-good moment for our Hyundai dealers, of course, those hospitals, and, you know, most importantly, we felt good as a company that we were able to help the community, and especially people who are really hurting. You know, it's interesting also to note, I would be remiss not to tell you this part of the story, but, you know, with crisis, behaviors changed dramatically, right? We all went to work from home. We all had to figure out a new way to live. And this really affected our dealers across the country as well. And while many of our dealers were using digital retail tools, and a large percentage had been doing it very well, we consolidated those tools into an idea called Shopper Assurance. Not all of them were using them, but with the government mandates, dealers were, I guess, really forced to offer these digital retailing tools and home delivery options to still be available to sell vehicles to consumers who, if they felt that they were financially stable and had a need for a vehicle, it was a great time to buy a car because there were some incredible incentives happening in the market at that time, and Hyundai had offered our share of those incentives as well. So continuing with our down and dirty creative, here's a spot we did for digital retailing and home delivery.
For Hyundai and its dealers, the health and safety of our local communities have always come first. And right now, we're all safer at home. But should you need a vehicle, we have options to shop online. And a participating dealer will deliver it right to you. And to ease the financial strain, you'll make no payments for 90 days. Together, we can create a safer, better car buying experience.
Get 0% APR for up to 84 months on the 2020 Tucson and make no payments for 90 days. Visit HyundaiUSA.com today.
You know, it was interesting what consumers were expecting, or what they had some, I guess, concerns with, well, for going into a dealership, even if it was just for servicing, was would they be safe and how could they be protected? And to help with that, we also launched what we call Hyundai Clean Assurance. And this is a set of guidelines and protocols that we have offered to our dealers for them to put in their own facilities to make sure that cleaning and delivery of any vehicle, whether it was for service or that it was new, would be done in a way that would make customers feel really comfortable. So we had sort of a 360-degree approach to getting through COVID at that time, and helping people buy a vehicle or get a vehicle as needed, even though it wasn't quite like it had been in the past. And so as we move through the spring, heading into the first summer months, you know, it was a question of, are we getting back to this idea of the new normal? Well, I have to tell you, like many of you have probably experienced, you know, we would take 2 steps forward and it felt like we would take 3 steps back. For me, this idea of new normal is not easy. It's not been consistent. But I think the thing that has been a consistent theme for us, if anything, is that we've remained calm as a company. We have incredible senior leadership under our CEO, Jose Munoz, and he gave all of us the confidence that we were doing the right thing to address the pandemic in the marketplace. And we were willing to try new things, and we decided to stay on air and to remain in communication with our customers that we were trying to do our part as a global company to help all of us get through COVID as best as we could. So the question was at the time, well, was all of that too soon to think that we could get back to market? Well, everything we saw in our digital shopping tools told us that we had huge pent-up demand. And we had industry research that told us that if people had a need for a car, which there was a lot of that, especially in areas where there were people who were using public transportation that might have not been able to use public transportation, not comfortable with that, they definitely wanted to have the idea or the resources to buy a car. If they couldn't do it in that moment in time they thought they wanted the car, they would just slightly delay that purchase. And so we thought that there would be a good momentum getting back to where we had been before COVID had started. But interestingly, we also had a lot of financial objectives that we wanted to hit as a company. So as part of that, we turned back our impressions even more in June. They were the lowest that we had for the entire year, which we didn't expect moving into COVID, but it was the right thing to do. And the thing that I think was interesting about this, looking back at this time, that with even the lower impressions, we had incredible response. Even with those lower impressions, we continued to see week over week gains in our web traffic. And in fact, that's only continued as we've had the largest number of visits to our website this last week. And as crazy as that seems, we have a tool that allows us to see how people are physically going to dealerships and if they're buying or going for service. And we've seen a huge rebound in visits to the dealerships with the highest foot traffic happening in July. So some of that could be for service, but a lot of it is for shopping. And while our digital tools will remain in place because we think that that's something that people really like and love, is to be able to do a lot of that shopping and online paperwork online, we know that people still like to go to the dealership too, to actually physically see the vehicle. And so that just gave us the idea that there was huge pent-up demand and still a lot of people who are interested in buying a car. So while things are far from normal, including the sad and unfortunate death of George Floyd and all the protests, which we did address as well with some special work around June 19th. We also did go back to supporting what we call our core models, which includes Sonata, the Santa Fe, and Tucson. So what's next? Well, the end of the year will be an interesting one. We feel very optimistic, although the industry will be down overall and our business as well. We've done well as a company. We have a lot more product launches to focus on, and we'd like to capture some of the momentum that we had at the beginning of the year, with some of those launches being the all-new Elantra in October, fully newly redesigned, just like our Sonata. And we will have a refreshing Santa Fe at the end of the year. That'll come out in November, December. And all of that will lead up to an incredible 2021 where we'll launch an all-new Tucson. And if you haven't heard about it, it's an open bed truck called Santa Cruz, which will come towards the summer of 2021. So we are not stopping, and we're hoping to get back to as much of normal as possible to capitalize on some of this great design and engineering that's been in process for many years. So while we aren't out of the woods, we are thankful on the bets that we made in the market, and we've been able to garner some great market share, which is pretty difficult to do as all of us are fighting for share out there. So for all of you, my suggestion is do the best that you can with the information that you have, and know that even if you don't get something 100% right, it's going to be okay. You can always pivot and change it. I think the flexibility and the rapid pace by which things are moving, nothing's being remembered for too much time. And so I think as a marketer, have some confidence that you can maybe not make the best bet, but it's not going to completely destroy things. And the biggest advice I would say is don't panic. We're all in this together. We're all trying to figure it out. And you know, hopefully we'll see that silver lining soon. So I appreciate you having me here with you today to let you share a little bit about our Hyundai story and what we did. It feels like a lot that I tried to truncate in 20 minutes. So I appreciate you letting me tell the story. And again, I hope you all stay healthy and safe. Thank you so much. And I think if we have time, we can open it up for some potential questions.
We do. We've got just a minute or two, and we do have one question via chat, the chat box. It's from Michael Kraut, and he says, first of all, great recap. And he's wondering, where is Hyundai on vehicle production, and what vehicles are the factories focusing on due to demand?
Yeah, great question. I didn't even get into that. That's a huge part of the story for us, and part of the reason I think we were able to do well. We had a lot of our production in place that was appropriate for what we expected to sell in the marketplace, and we were able to get those vehicles on the ground to dealerships. That hurt some other OEMs in that they ran out of inventory. That wasn't necessarily our case. We were more concerned with our supply chain for getting parts. Mexico is a concern because we have some companies we work with there. We are pretty much on track to deliver everything that we're supposed to. We have not heard of any major slowdowns. Our Genesis counterparts, they have a little bit of a delay on some of their product, but not too bad. And most of that is, again, due to supply chain. But we did have a lot of things put in place just as we were expecting to have a very, very big year. And I think some of those decisions that were made early on, even before COVID came, helped us a lot. But yes, manufacturing and supply chain are a big part of the puzzle. And again, everything we were planning on manufacturing, we're going to try to hit as many of those numbers as we can. And we have turned down a few of our vehicles in total volume, but it's not dramatic. It's pretty close to what we expected the year to be.
Great. Well, unfortunately, we need to stay on schedule, so I'm going to go ahead and cut off the questions. There is one more question in the chat box. Maybe you can answer it by chat.